He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall, and I guess you just rhyme with Bat Minutes! Hello, and welcome Oh, no, that's bad.
Oh, that's got to stay in, come on.
Okay, I'll just do it normally. Hello, welcome back to the hiatus period of Bat Minute, where we're here to talk about the island of Dr. Moreau. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
And I'm your other host, I'm John.
Is that your David?
That was a very bad David Thewlis, but I was trying. I love how northern he is. It's great.
Oh, I've got things to say about David Thewlis when we get in, but yeah, of course, yeah, people might ask, why are you covering the island of Dr. Moreau? And if you've listened at all to the past season, you'll know why we're covering the island of Dr. Moreau. Of course, nightmare production to make one of the worst films, well, quote unquote, one of the worst films ever made.
Really?
And we talked about it mostly because of Val Kilmer's behavior on set, but not a lot of the rest of the cacophony of other things that happened. To join us, we do have Bat Minute's resident cat lady. She was on for Cats. She was on for Catwoman. She debuted on Bat Minute during a minute of Batman Returns featuring Catwoman. And now here she is to talk about a movie where there's cat people. It is, of course, Alyson Grimm.
I really hadn't realized that the first Bat Minute I was on did feature Catwoman.
And
wow.
I'm pretty sure largely it's been an accident until this point.
Now it's very intentional.
I was like any form of like bestial human animal hybrid.
I swear to God, I'm not a furry.
We're just trying to make people believe you are. That's been our mission since day one.
I think everybody already does. I should just lean into it.
That's why we created the podcast to begin with.
It's just our way into the furry community through Batman. It's like, well, he's halfway there, so.
And Niall, I didn't say this to you, but off mic just now, in the green room, I revealed to Alyson that I realised not only have I not seen this before, but I was mixing it up with something else. Because the name, I was confused. I thought it was Dr. Zhivago.
That's why I was cackling when you came on.
And it is very much not.
Oh, man. We're sitting watching a 4-hour Siberian set, like a romantic drama. Like,
it kind of is.
That's what you expected, and then this is what you got.
And let me just say this. I think I'm going to be in the minority, but I was not disappointed.
That's the thing. Like, okay, so we might as well go through opinions on the movie. John, I'm getting the vibe from you that you didn't think it was that bad.
Right, okay. I actively loved it.
Loved it? Okay.
I thought it was fantastic. I can understand why people don't like it. It's weird. It's bizarre. It's strange. Marlon Brando is some sort of strange Palpatine drag queen for half of the movie. And it also has the feel not only of an old film, like a Planet of the Apes or a Journey to the Center of the Earth, King Kong, these kind of things. But on top of that, it does also feel like an old 90s, like Hercules episode or something.
Oh, Alyson, what is your opinion?
So I really can't fault John Finn for that opinion because that's exactly how I felt about Catwoman. So Island of Dr. Moreau came out when I was 10, and I probably saw it for the first time at the drive-in because when I was in elementary school and high school, my mom would work there on weekends. And I just remember loving it when I was that age. I was horrified and fascinated by it, but also just absolutely loved it. And that opinion doesn't really hold up now.
Blasphemer.
How many years later? I found it very disturbing, more than a little bit problematic. I couldn't really get into it. And also, I'm incapable of seeing David Thewlis as a good guy anymore, so his appearance in Fargo has tainted him for me forever.
Oh, he's like season 3 of Fargo contains two very memorable things. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is fantastic and everything, and David Thewlis with halitosis, so he's got rotten teeth.
Well, it's because he's bulimic and he throws up all the time.
Yeah. Oh no, not halitosis, bulimia. Yeah.
Yeah, it rots his teeth, doesn't it? The acids.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's got something about him now where it's like he suits those kind of sleazy, sort of sweaty, disgusting roles. All right. Hello, I'm here to take over everything.
I'm gonna pee in your coffee cup and make you drink it.
Yeah. He suits those roles, and they seem to have thrown him into the part here of like romantic lead, and that's one of the more minor problems.
I mean, maybe he was better for it back then. I mean, a lot has changed in 20 plus years.
Well, I'm going to defend it even more with a similar logic of, right, think about when the story was written, right? Don't ignore when it's set in this adaptation. Think about when it was written, right? A man who looked like that, he would be the heroic lead in an old story. That's what you'd imagine him to look like. So really, it should be set in the past.
Well, the thing is, John, when do you think this is set?
I mean, I get the impression he's talking about like the UN and stuff, isn't he? So it's definitely post World War II. I thought it was set in the 90s.
Well, I only found the movie doesn't tell you this, but I've found this out through research into it. This film is set in 2010.
What?
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, in the script, whatever version of the script they ended up filming, this is set in 2010.
Why?
I don't know. Like, I kind of got the vibe it's definitely after the 60s because Val Kilmer mentions Jimi Hendrix at one point.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I guess maybe it's supposed to be set in 96. It does give the vibe like this should be set like back when H.G. Wells wrote the original story.
Yeah, that's the vibe. Like, and imagine that with David Thewlis. You're like, oh, okay, that works. He looks like an explorer.
But then Val Kilmer looks extremely 1996.
Yeah. Is it just me who got like pretty boy Brad Pitt vibes off him?
Oh, for sure.
And the thing is, like, we'll be delving into the various problems in production of this movie because the thing is about the Island of Dr. Moreau is like it's more infamous for what happened behind the scenes than it is for. It's got this reputation as being like an absolutely appalling film. My opinion of it overall is actually it's not that bad. It's got a lot of issues, but it's not that bad.
Okay, so we have everything on the spectrum here then.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, one of the problems, like again, we mentioned throughout the entire last season because we were dealing with primarily Val Kilmer throughout all of Batman Forever. He was, of course, a nightmare on this set. Got the original director Richard Stanley fired by just constantly undermining him. Like they'd be going through the first couple of scenes, and Val Kilmer would be like, Richard Stanley would be trying to direct. And Val Kilmer would kind of wander over and be like, so how are you going to do this? And he'd explain it to him. And he'd be like, no, that's not going to work. And he'd completely undermine him under the crew. And Richard Stanley would try to get like, well, I'm the director. Like, and Val Kilmer would be like, but I'm the star. I'm somebody and you're nobody.
Wait, and he thinks he's the star?
Well, he is. The thing is, at the time, he was the star. He was brought in. Originally, the lineup, I believe, was Marlon Brando was brought in. One of the first people. Then it was going to be Bruce Willis. David Thewlis. James Woods was going to be the Val Kilmer part, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And then they shifted it around to where Val Kilmer was the Bruce Willis part. And then he decided, I want 40% less filming days. And so the only thing they could do was to give him the role of Montgomery. And so they had to fire James Woods to... But at that point, because 96, Val Kilmer, he was Batman. He was like, this guy's hot.
He was a draw, yeah.
Yeah, but when you've got
you
Marlon
wanted
Brando
him as the star of
in your
your movie.
I know Brando's past his prime, but don't go throwing your weight around when he's on set. Come on. So that wasn't a joke.
Well, that's the thing, though, because Brando is like, he might be a draw in terms of like, oh, the older audience and whatnot. But then if you want to get in like the younger people, they'll be like, oh, they don't know they either know Brando and don't care, or they're like, oh, he's like old.
Well, yeah, I
weird
agree
Marlon
with
Brando.
that.
I don't want to see that. They might be like, oh yeah, hot young Val Kilmer is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you don't act like a diva to the director when you got Marlon Brando sitting there. Come on.
I mean, I know hot young Val Kilmer is why my mom wanted to see it. So
He's too cheesy. He's too pretty in it. I don't know, with that hair and everything. It's
And the thing is, the vibe I really get from it is, like, if people don't know, like, this whole production was like a cacophony of chaos. Like, this was a nightmare production to make. This was originally started off as Richard Stanley, who's a fascinating filmmaker. Like, to listen to Richard Stanley talk, you want him to host like a podcast because he's such an interesting man. He's very eloquent, and he's all into like witchcraft and like alternate worlds and H.P. Lovecraft and all. He's very well educated and into like the other side, the other realms of reality and stuff. And he made Hardware and Dust Devil, and so he was gathering sort of clout as a director. He wrote a version of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which he was very passionate about. And it was, I think the only real remnant of it is the scene of the animal hybrid giving birth, where it's just like this bizarre scene of just like, oh, all these animal doctors and there's a baby. And I remember him saying he wanted, there was going to be a scene of the baby sucking on a mutant nipple and all this kind of thing. And he had this very out there sort of version of what this film was going to be.
It's out there enough.
no, I wish we could have seen his original version of the movie, especially because he was a great admirer of the source material, and this was sort of a labor of love for him. So it was supposed to be originally a lot darker and more sexual, with a much more apocalyptic ending, which I would have been way more into.
Oh, yeah, I would like that, yeah. I mean, I loved it as it was, but that sounds even better.
But like, then he comes up like, again, it's a fantastic documentary about the making of this film called Lost Soul, the journey to Richard Stanley's The Island of Dr. Moreau, where they go through everything in much more detail than we'll ever be able to cover. But yeah, he came in, and because he's just like a maverick young director who's like wide brim hats, long hair, constantly smoking cigarettes and stuff, hot young guy in his 20s, and he comes in the New Line, and they're eventually like, I don't know if we want to make it with this guy. Like, we like the idea, but who's this asshole? Apparently, the only reason he got to be director is because he was going to meet with Marlon Brando, and Brando didn't like him before he met him. He's like, oh, this little asshole, I'm going. And then Richard Stanley had one of his friends who's a warlock do a spell.
That's right. I just read that earlier.
Yeah, and so.
Amazing.
Apparently then the meeting with Marlon Brando, simultaneously his friend was doing this ceremony back in London. And apparently that's why Brando loved this guy. He was like, this is the guy. This is the guy you want to make it.
Amazing.
And Brando was also, he appreciated that he was so sympathetic to the source material. And I guess Stanley is tangentially related to the actual historical explorer from Heart of Darkness.
Oh, it's Sir Henry Morton Stanley.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
And to hear him talk too, he does like it sounds very, very clipped British, and blah, 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 blah. So you can imagine that he would come from that lineage, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But Stanley again, I would love to see just more of him talking, because I saw an interview with him where he was talking about things like his mother was going to die in 2001, and he's like, yes, and I managed to source some meteor rocks that bleeding meteor rocks, and we put the blood for the meteor rocks into her eyes because she had optic nerve cancer, and we got her back for 10 years. She didn't come back the same way though. And he's getting the story about like she was the same person. She lost all aptitude for music, for art. She was basically a walking zombie, and all that. Like, and we're just like, what is this guy's life? He just seems to live in this other world where it's just like, yes, strange supernatural things happen to be all the. I found these rocks that were a part of the Holy Grail myth, where the knights had sustained themselves on these rocks. And it's like, where did you come across those?
If you look into the history of the Western magical tradition in the 19th and 20th century, it's all rich British guys. It's extremely affluent, Brits who just, they don't have to work, so all they do is read and each other.
Living the life.
And convince women to come be with them because of reaching some spiritual ecstasy.
He does have that vibe too, where I think after this movie, he didn't work in Hollywood for like up until Color Out of Space, which is last year with Nicolas Cage. But when he reappeared for that, he was just talking about like, oh yes, up in the compound I own, and you're like, you own a compound?
Go on.
Where's the money even coming from?
These people don't need to make money. It's just there. It just exists in their world.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, of course, then he began making this. I think New Line Cinema didn't believe in him at all, and apparently a lot of the other people on set, he's a guy who knows low budget movies, given a big Hollywood blockbuster out in Australia, where he's just like, oh, you go off and do a set shoot, and it's crazy and it's huge, you know. And apparently, like within 2 weeks, it was understood that like this guy's out of his element and stuff. I think Rob Moreau, he was originally. Well, I say originally the David Thewlis part. Bruce Willis was originally David Thewlis part. Then it was Val Kilmer. Then it was a guy from Northern Exposure called Rob Morrow. And he begged to be let out of the movie within 2 weeks because it was just so apparent that Rich Stanley didn't know what he was doing and that the whole set was in chaos. Because I believe actually in that documentary, Richard Stanley puts it as like, about 1 weekend I made my first tactical error. I met Val Kilmer.
Oh. Hey, he's not wrong, though. Loads of people have said the same thing.
Marlon Brando said the same thing.
And the thing is that Brando was the only guy in Richard Stanley's corner. He was like, this guy is the guy to make this. But then, of course, I think Richard Stanley says that his warlock friend who had put the spell on the movie to make everything work well, he lived somewhere where there was radiation. And so his bones began to collapse.
Oh, my God.
Oh. The Warlock of Chernobyl.
And then around that time, Marlon Brando's, I think his daughter killed herself.
Yes.
Oh.
So he had to go off. And then when Marlon Brando wasn't there to protect them, they fired Richard Stanley because they're like, we need to get this guy out of here. And he ain't got Brando around to protect him anymore. And Val Kilmer's the guy we want to keep in the movie. And if he's not happy with him, then...
Well, don't you think, though, like, this guy sounds like he's got good vision for this material. Like, he suits it. But I know this doesn't always work. You could argue that it didn't work in the end anyway, so why not bring in someone to co-direct with him? Someone who knows what they're doing.
They should let him do it now.
Well, that would be a thing. Like nowadays, yeah. Could you a film that was a big budget back in the 1990s? It might be a lower budget nowadays.
Just give it to A24.
Oh my God, yeah.
But yeah, so of course he was gone. They brought in John Frankenheimer from the Manchurian Candidate and the Birdman of Alcatraz and whatnot. Old school, old Hollywood director. And things just got worse when he was there.
Oh, when David Thewlis came on, Brando apparently told him he warned him against it and said, this movie's cursed.
Yeah.
And he knows a thing or two about cursed movies.
Right?
Everything about it, too, is like, because you get the vibe that like Val Kilmer is just sort of doing what he wants in it. Brando's the most enjoyable thing in this film, I would say, because he does have the attitude of like, whatever. Like, He seems like he's having a grand old time. And because of that, you're kind of like, yeah, I like watching this guy. Like, he seems like he's just having...
Well, that's the weird thing about his character, is Dr. Moreau, we haven't actually got to what he's doing yet, we will, but he's not, like, a villain. He's not trying to do something evil. I'm not saying his methods are good. He's trying to do something good. He's one of those villains
who believes that he's the good guy.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You don't hate him, but you don't like him. It's weird. He's charismatic.
I think that's one of those things, though. Is it that he's charismatic because it's Marlon Brando, though? That you're kind of like, because Kurtz in Apocalypse Now, which is very much what they're riffing on. Yeah. With this, like it's like, oh well, I think that's how they pitched it to Brando. Was like he had still never quite gotten over playing Colonel Kurtz. He's like, oh, I love that character. And like we can essentially play him again. It's like a man-made god in the wilderness that someone has to go and find. You are that character once more and stuff.
Although the most important thing, of course, is that he first won his Nobel Prize from inventing Velcro.
Oh, of course, yes. Much like Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. Like, instead of inventing Post-its, he invented Velcro.
I never expected a comparison between those two movies, but there you go.
Neither did I.
There's a great scene of this, like, in that high school reunion. She's in one corner going, like, I invented Post-its. And then on the other side is Marlon Brando, but 50 years older than everybody else there. It's just like, I invented Velcro. That's right. Yeah.
But I want him with all the white makeup on that he wears in this and stuff, and that stupid hat.
Is it supposed to be sunscreen?
I think it is, but he's put it
zinc.
in like a makeup, so he can just smear it all on easy. Like, so it looks better. It's not as oily.
I think that was one of the better moments of the movie for me, though, was that, because again, knowing that, like, Marlon Brando just decided he wanted to wear that makeup. Like, that wasn't a thing in the script. He just showed up and was like, yeah, this is the thing I'm doing.
We're doing this now.
Yeah, deal with it. And
he
then the
showed
fact
up in full costume like that. That's just what he happened to be wearing that day. And the director said, perfect, no notes.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the director even said perfect. It was just more like, okay. Yeah, it's like, this is what we want to deal with.
Well, you don't tell Marlon Brando no.
Yeah. And I think the fact then, though, like, when he brings in David Thewlis into his little hut and he's got all the animal people around him and he's just like, I know this must seem very strange and I know you must think that I'm crazy, but I genuinely am allergic to the sun. And like, that joke really landed for me.
Like, oh, that's the crazy.
It's like the Old Spice commercial where it's the centaur taking a shower. And he's like, I'm two things. I'm a man, and I'm also a provider.
It's the same gag. Oh, my God.
But because we leaped ahead into the movie here. Like, even to go through the beginning of this, again, set in 2010, apparently, you get David Thewlis and these two other guys. They look like one of them looks like he's a soldier, but he's got this hair dye job that looks like he's from like Hot Topic or something.
They're with the UN, though, so
that's what everybody dresses like in the year 2010.
Well, that's what it could genuinely be. It's like, he's with the UN. I imagine it's a bit laxer than a nation's military and whatnot. And it's the future.
But this is like, to be fair, maybe it's a more accurate version of the future than like Stanley Kubrick had with A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's ever just wearing the 70s, but bowler hats. But the whole time I was like, is it like a filter to put on the camera, or is that guy's hair green? And at the time I thought he was like a soldier, so I was like, this doesn't make any goddamn sense. And it's all just set up to be like, look at the ferocity of man. Look at how much of a beast man can be. This is thematic. Keep this in mind for what you're about to see.
Hey, I loved the start, right? The first scene I was sold. I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is great. I've seen stories like this. I know where it's going. I'm on board. And it really did immediately come across that, like, oh, they've adapted a book. It has narration, and it's very... I imagine it's line for line. I don't know. The narration, not the rest of the film.
Okay.
So I know this was very much like Richard Stanley had a script that he was very proud of, and apparently it was supposed to be excellent. But then, I don't know why like new directors come in and do this, but like John Frankenheimer showed up with his people, and it was like, well, page one rewrite. And it was basically like one of the things apparently Fruza Balk, of course, is in this movie. She came to Marlon Brando and was like, I'd like to work on our characters. What's our relationship, and like, how do we know each other, and what's our past and stuff. And Brando was like, no, we're not doing that.
Oh.
And she was like, well, why not? And he's just like, this, we're getting new script pages every day. This thing has been rewritten constantly. It's complete nonsense.
It got to the point that David Thewlis essentially wrote his own character and was improvising in some scenes.
Oh my God, this makes me like it more, not less.
But there's even vibes though, like, because of course Val Kilmer is the one who picks up David Thewlis, and he brings him to the island of Dr. Moreau.
He saves him, Niley saves him. He doesn't just bring him.
And they do a little cheeky little hints where he's going like, oh, the people here, yeah, they're real party animals. And you're like, I get you. But there are hints of improvisation. Because again, Val Kilmer is a very talented actor and stuff. Like, he has got a screen presence. And I got a real vibe, like when he kills that rabbit in front of David Thewlis. There's a little bit where he holds it up and he kind of kisses it and stuff. That feels like improv to me.
Yeah.
Oh, he actually killed that rabbit, I'm sure.
Again, though, they probably were just like, that rabbit was never in the script, but then Val Kilmer killed a rabbit, and John Frankenheimer was like, damn it, we're putting it in the movie.
Well, if he's done it already, you might as well use the footage.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, we're hinging the rest of the entire plot around the fact that, like, yeah, they find dead rabbits because Val Kilmer killed one, even though he wasn't supposed to.
You know what's interesting? You say he's got charisma and that, and he does, but it's not in the usual way. It's actually, Alyson, you'll like this. I think it's like Orange Cassidy, the wrestler.
Okay.
Right, as in he sounds bored and lazy all the time. He just sort of talks like this, and he doesn't really enunciate too well.
He doesn't try.
No,
yeah,
he doesn't.
he's sort of effortless in everything he does.
Which is kind of cool.
Well, I think this might be Val Kilmer. I would posit, and I believe we have already posited throughout the main season. Probably has, like, if not BPD, probably like a bit of a manic depressive disorder or something. Because nowadays he talks about like very fond memories of making the island of Dr. Moreau. Apparently, everyone else says that him and Brando hated each other. Val Kilmer's like, Marlon Brando and me got on great. Like, he helped me through my divorce. I love that man. And it's like, I don't know if that's true.
Like, I think you're gaslighting yourself.
I don't know. Maybe he's just a more positive person. He sees the good.
I think at this point of his life, because he was going through his divorcing Joanne Whaley. Of course, that's why him and Jim Carrey, of course, bonded over their mutual divorces and the deaths of their fathers on the set of Batman Forever. But it's still going on in '96. So Val Kilmer's been hauled through the court system for this divorce. Recently bereaved. Apparently fell out with his brother and stuff. So he's probably at a pretty low place, but he's also very high in Hollywood. And so I imagine he is this, like, he's obviously horrible narcissist. No one has any excuse to treat people the way that he definitely did, even though he says he didn't. I think at this point he probably is just like, I can do whatever I want. So his attitude is like, yeah, lazy. I control this movie. This movie revolves around me. And then Brando shows up and he's like, I guess it revolves around him as well. But him and me, we're both. This is the film, and we've got people bending over backwards to make this multi-million-dollar, huge friggin' blockbuster.
Entirely around these two men's egos.
Yeah, and he's not even the main character. The main character's
by his own choice.
That's so weird. And you keep saying how it's an expensive movie, a big budget movie, right? And again, keep in mind, I loved it. It didn't come across as an expensive movie.
I think it was one of those ones where to hear the people, the extras and stuff talk about it, they were supposed to be there for 6 weeks. They were there for 6 months.
So that's why.
That's where the money went.
And all the extras just talk about like, oh, we had a great time because it was just basically we're just kept up in a hotel and just partying all day, every day. And they would give you like a very hefty per diem, which is, they give you money to buy food and stuff like that. And so one of the guys thought, yeah, I bought this giant Skeletrix set and just set it up in my room. Everyone came around to play with it. And we were just doing this every day for 6 months. So I imagine a lot of the money just went to that.
Well, nowadays, they're lucky if they can find half an hour a week in which to get funky.
But again, also, of course, where your budget's going to go is you've cast Marlon Brando. And I imagine if this movie is like 60 million, 20 million of that's probably going to Marlon.
Yeah, but tell you what, worth every penny.
He is. I really thought he made the movie for me, quite frankly.
He was so camp.
Yeah, he exudes this vibe of like he's just having fun.
Well, I thought he came across like Christopher Biggins. I don't know if Americans will know him.
I don't know him.
Like, I would not put it past Marlon Brando to be like, yes, I based them on Christopher Biggins. That was the inspiration.
Now, Christopher Biggins is in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but he's such a minor part in it, you wouldn't know him from that. He's bigger here in general. Yeah,
I think you got to see, during Time Warp, he's fed a canapé, I believe, in the background. It's like a little close-up of him. It's like, oh, it's Christopher Biggins. But, Brando, it's one of those things, it's like, I don't know if he's just that good an actor. But even though this whole thing's chaos, he won me over entirely. His accent is atrocious, and he is high camp.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just looked him up.
Yeah, you've probably seen him before.
In I recognize him from Rocky Horror.
Ah, okay. But Brando, we haven't said he is the title character. He is the Doctor, not Doctor Who. But
Brando as the island.
He's the island. He is. Again, that is not a joke. About his size.
I really want to see Marlon Brando playing the Doctor in Doctor Who.
Dr. Zhivago?
It's like,
All
the
of the
Doctor should
above.
go out on an adventure. Nah, I'm just gonna stay here. He just slides around the TARDIS all day.
With his mini-me, of course.
What I found fascinating is that this is so much after, like, a bunch of movies like Apocalypse Now, where you have a certain image of him at that time. Like, okay, he's lost it. Like, this is, in my mind, Apocalypse Now, that's his last, like, sensible thing before he goes crazy. I mean, look at him in that movie.
He's
I think
off his rocker.
that film is him actively going crazy. Like, that's
Yeah.
it's in the process of his mind is gone by the end of production.
Well, that's the thing. So I assume, in my head, everything after then is going to be terrible. But in this, he is actually acting. They didn't have to shoot him in the dark or anything like that movie. He's there. He's participating.
There's things in it like Alyson, you mentioned, of course, Mini-Me. Looking at this now, we're knowing that like Austin Powers and the Spy Who Shagged Me got so much material basically from the island of Dr. Moreau because Mini-Me is 100% based on.
Is that what
yeah.
it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
That I made a note. I was going to ask both of you, especially now because I figured you'd have all the inside knowledge on this one, being new to me. I was like, this is just like Mini-Me with the guy with the progeria. I assume that's the condition he's got. Because they're even playing the pianos. And they're wearing a do-rag.
Yeah. Mike Myers has said as much.
Oh, yes.
I think it was just rife for satire in because of course then South Park had Dr. Mephisto and Kevin. Which is just Moreau and this little guy that he has.
Oh, yeah. See, I didn't know any of this.
Well, a lot of it is like those guys making fun of it. You don't need to make fun of it. The movie, like Marlon Brando knows that this is ridiculous. The movie seems to be presenting it as such, as like, yes, I've got this little man with me. This is just. But a lot of the appeal of it to me was that there's a sense of genuine affection between him and Nelson De La Rosa, is the apparently at that point was the smallest man in the world they had on set. Brando seems to genuinely love that this guy is with him, and it comes across, which sort of endeared me towards the whole thing even more.
Yeah, because basically, the Doctor, I almost called him Zhivago, Moreau has. He's calling them children. He's genetically created these experiments, as it were, and they're his kids and stuff. And he's one of them. So you get the vibe, okay, he's like, I hate to say this, but, you know, like it didn't work properly.
The favorite son.
Yeah, but he loves him. And I thought that was really good that they were presented, all of the children, especially him, because obviously he's got a real condition. They were presented for laughs, when you could easily have made it like, even sillier than it is. But he was always presented like, oh, no, this is just his son that he loves. He's got a tail. Okay.
I don't know, Alyson, because I know you said you felt the movie was problematic in many ways. Like, is that...
And I mean, it's part of the intent of the original novel, I'm sure. But, I don't know. I felt like... Well, of course, the entire idea of English explorers taking over the native is... extremely messed up.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I felt like with the animal hybrids, there was some troubling racial stuff. I don't know. I just I sort of made a face at some of the characters.
I can see that the way. Well, they all have dreadlocks and things like this. It's
yeah,
portray,
or like the one is like very obviously of Asian descent, and even Fairuza Balk is sort of exotic looking, And then everybody who's just quote unquote like regular human are just white guys.
Yeah, if you remake it now, like we suggested, diversify the cast a little bit. Come on.
Well, that's the, like, you could even say that maybe nowadays, like, I imagine Mini-Me wouldn't be a thing in a modern comedy because it's just like, yeah. And like, I do know that within production, like, one of the people who was majorly screwed over by this whole thing was like an actor called Mark Hofstetter. acclaimed German actor. And he was supposed to be Moreau's like right-hand man. He was the most educated of the animal hybrids. He was supposed to have like the most interesting part of the movie, basically. And when Brando discovered Nelson De La Rosa, like they had him there, it was like, oh, this is the smallest man in the world. And Marlon Brando was just like, this guy is adorable. I love him. He's going to be in every scene with me. And so he got a lot of what Marco Hofstadter was supposed to be getting was given to him. And then even more than with Tamura Morrison, Django Fett himself is one of the animal people in this.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him at first.
Well, I guess you wouldn't, because it's good. One of the things about this movie is that as much flack as it gets, makeup's phenomenal. Like it looks great for like Stan Winston did this, so like all that stuff's top tier. But so Tamura Morrison, he's like, oh yeah, the dog man. He's Marlon Brando's right hand man, basically when it's not Nelson De La Rosa, like the mini me. And so Marco Hofstadter is just kind of like his role is just taken away from him. And again, apparently a lot of it was Val Kilmer as well. Him coming in and saying like, apparently the opening scene was originally Marco Hofstadter telling the story, and Val Kilmer was like, no, you don't want to do that. And so therefore, that's because Val Kilmer has the clout. That scene was taken away from this poor German actor, and he shows up and talks about this movie. It was just like, yeah, that was like I was the best character of this whole film. Sucked the life straight out of me. And then one of the worst things he said was that because Nelson De La Rosa, the little man, he was huge, a huge celebrity around where they were shooting. Like they shot this in Cairns in Australia, and in like the Dominican Republic and whatnot. He was massive celebrity. So like just many countries in the world just knew. Oh yeah, the smallest man in the world. Oh, everyone loves him. And apparently he sleazed with a lot of the female cast and stuff. He had a sister there to translate for him, and she just constantly had to be like, I'm just not saying what you're telling me to say to these women and stuff. And Margot Hofstadter saying like one time he got on an elevator and Nelson De La Rosa came on very hungover. And he knew that this guy had basically stolen most of his part. And he was just like, oh, so Nelson, how's it going? And Nelson just turned around and punched him square in the balls. And because he was hungover and he was just annoyed. I was like, wow. Marco, dude, I feel so bad for you.
So which character was he then?
You can barely tell that he's in the friggin' movie. He's just one of the background, animal hybrid.
Oh, he's not like one of the kids. I thought maybe he was going to be the one who seems okay, wears the white shirt.
I think that is him.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Very minor part.
Because you get the vibe that he should be an important character. Because there's a couple of moments that are clearly still in the movie that you're kind of like, huh? Like towards the end when he sees the horrors that have been unleashed and everything's falling apart and that, and it's like, well, this is meant to be a kind of an emotional moment. But
I think that was my problem with the film overall, was that it actually has a pretty good setup, but at the end I didn't care about anything. Like it was just like, it gets to a point late on where it's just like, Moreau is dead, and I was like, oh, whatever. And then it's like, you're so invested in the Fairuza Balk character, and she
then
gets
she's
hung.
dead.
Yeah, she's dead, and you're like, okay.
Oh, that caught me off guard, though.
And I feel like that could have been handled much better in another person's hands. Make us feel something, make us care about something after this. It just didn't really have any sort of emotional resonance. It just happened. Oh, that sucks. I don't care anymore.
I think that's where it begins to show that like they were just trying to get the film made. Like they could have. Apparently, originally the inspiration for her character does not come from the H.G. Wells book. It's from Richard Stanley saw a poster of like a Panther Woman from the 1970s Island of Dr. Moreau, where it was like this woman's face morphing into a panther. And he's like, that's not in the movie. Why isn't that in the movie?
Richard Stanley saw an Animorphs cover, and
very much so. Like a fantastic animal, and I really wanted to bring that to the.
Hey, I want that in every film.
But the thing is that because everything Fairuza Balk is saying is like she's regressing, she's turning into this Panther Woman, and you're kind of waiting for it to happen. And apparently that was the original intent, was that she was going to become a Panther Woman. She was going to be killed by the dog men. And then her corpse was going to be served to David Thewlis. But he goes around, he starts going crazy and starts killing them. But because dogs have such short memories, they don't know why he's killing them and stuff. that was the original intent of her. Like, and that sounds like it's much more. Like, again, you could say it's like, well, it's not, in terms of female there's only like one female character in this whole movie.
Yeah. I mean, that gives her whole existence and her death so much more meaning and weight, and kind of, it feels more like emotionally sticky,
Yeah, because in this, she's kind of just there to be like, oh, look, he's got one kid who's sexy. It's like, it worked this time.
But the fact that they're also setting up, like, she is going to turn into a Panther Woman. This is like if Jeff Goldblum and The Fly started turning into a fly, and then, like, at the...
And then they killed him.
Yeah, like at the 70-minute mark, when he's only got, like, a few little spots on his face and is eating loads of candy bars, he just got hung by some guy. And you're like, I'm here to see him turn into a fly. Like, what's going on about it? So, yeah, Fairuza Balk dying, I was kind of like, she'll be back. She'll be totally, but she'll show up in full-on Catwoman outfit. And no, that's the end of her. They had this thing about her teeth changing, and that was the end of that. And it just has a real vibe with John Frankenheimer being like, just get it over with. I want out of this hellhole. God, get me away from this movie.
Just shooting it exactly as it's written. One take. Come on.
I do wonder, actually, if this had any kind of impact on... Because Fairuza Balk, of course, fantastic actress. Many children of the 90s will just love Fairuza Balk just because, like, The Craft and Return to Oz.
Yeah, no, I love her, right? But in this, she's not doing the best voice.
Oh, well, she's just made to be like, oh, you're English, I guess?
Yeah.
Brando's playing in English, so I guess you got to play in English. But I wonder, though, if this did have something, because she's one of those many, actresses, like talking about Romeo and Michelle's, Mira Sorvino.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, their career annihilated by Harvey Weinstein and whatnot. And Fairuza Balk hadn't been in that much lately. I don't know if it's by choice or if it's just like...
Yeah, I'm not sure. But she didn't really do a lot of work after the late 90s, around the time when this came out.
I wonder, one of the things apparently is that because she was very much on Richard Stanley's side. She was friends with him. Because she's very much actively into witchcraft and stuff. Like, she was like, yes. She co-owned a witchcraft store and stuff. And I think apparently when he got fired, she kind of threw a bit of a tantrum, basically.
She made the studio pay. She took a chartered limousine to the airport in Sydney. And I guess her agent told her that the studio would ruin her if she backed out of the project. So she really had no choice but to go back.
And it should also be noted that Carnes across the entire country of Australia from Sydney. So her getting that limousine cost quite a bit of money to get her to that airport. And to hear her talk about it now, she's like, I don't remember doing that, but it's possible that I
probably did that. It's like me looking back on college. I'm like, I have no memory of that, but it checks out.
And so I wonder if that kind of behavior was just like, that got a little bit of a black mark against her. It was just like, well, Fairuza Balk's a bit problematic, she'll like, if she likes the director, she'll stand up for him and stuff. So I was like, oh. But yeah, so I don't know, like, Fairuza Balk, I'm waiting the thing is, I've been awaiting the Mira Sorvino renaissance since she came out with that story. It's like, well, she should be cast and everything now because everyone should be like, you owe her a career. And I've been, there's a book I read last year called We Sold Our Souls, about a 90s rock band that completely went, most of the band went and lost their entire careers. And like the lead singer became a superstar. Oh. And the female guitar player who wrote all the songs is just a completely screwed over dead end job and stuff. And she's just like, I want my goddamn. And it turns out that the lead singer actually made a pact with the devil. And that's why he's so successful and they're all screwed and stuff. And I think the writer of that book, Grady Hendrix, really, really great, fun horror writer. He put up about like, oh yeah, We Sold Our Souls is now on sale you can get it for this much. And I was just like, when is the movie adaptation of this coming? And why isn't it starring Fairuza Balk? And why wasn't it out last year? And he actively replied saying, I've been asking myself that same question. So like, Fairuza Balk and the We Sold Our Souls adaptation, me and the guy who wrote the book apparently are behind this.
Okay, so we need to find Richard Stanley's Warlock, and we're gonna make this happen.
Well, that's if his bones aren't completely.
All right, that's all right. We'll have to find a new Warlock with intact bones.
Well, if you can't find his Warlock, store bought is fine.
But again, everything about Richard Stanley is just like, he got his career started in Hollywood by being a weed supplier for Dario Argento.
That's how you start a Hollywood career.
That's fucking incredible.
This is like apparently in his early days. He met Dario Argento at like one of a press screening or premiere for Phenomena, and then somehow he hooked him up with weed once, and then that just became like, yes, now I'm Dario Argento's weed guy, so I have to get him weed constantly. He actually, like, you might be interested, John. He because he started off as a documentary maker. In the late 80s, he traveled to Afghanistan to document the Soviet-Afghan War. He witnessed the Soviet army's withdrawal from the countries and slide into civil war that would bring the Taliban to power. The resulting documentary, Voices of the Moon, is a 30-minute look at the daily lives of the Afghan people trying to survive. Stanley was present at the siege of Jalabad, and the events surrounding the escape from the country, along with his wounded cameraman, which later formed the basis for the screenplay Addicted to Danger.
What?
It's like, this guy, what life is this guy living? Like,
I thought I had a weird life. Jesus.
but yeah, everything about him too. Like he did I think Elijah Wood did a good he did a podcast last year called Visitations, where he meets with like Ana Lily Amirpour and Guillermo del Toro and stuff, people like this. Richard Stanley was one of them. And everything he's saying, like, he's going, you don't seem to realize, Richard, like the amount of insane coincidences that are going on in your life. Every single story is just Richard Stanley going, yes, I suppose that was quite strange. Yes. It's like,
It's because of all the wizardry.
well, yeah, 100%. This guy, he's involved in the hexing, witchcrafty world. And that's just his life. Like, he
Don't play with that stuff.
Yeah. And again, the island of Dr. Moreau and his subsequent hex that came upon this film, probably a good indication of.
Yeah. And you mentioned her character before regressing and whatnot, but we didn't actually say what they'd done for people who haven't seen the movie. So Dr. Moreau decides to create human-animal hybrids to rid kind of mankind of negative traits.
I don't know if that was an original source material thing, or if it was a Richard Stanley, because it seems like a bad idea.
Well, it is a bad idea. That's the point. Like, it's stupid.
It's such a terrible idea. It's like, why would anybody ever?
Hey, people in the real world have done similar crazy scientific things like that, Niall. It seems obvious to us that it's stupid, but, you know.
Like taking wild beasts and putting them, then combining them with man, where you're trying to take out the trait of humankind, of, negative, bestial, violent impulses.
Yeah, so I assume it's like aggression and jealousy and things like that he wants to get rid of.
But then it's like, to combine that with animals, it's like, well, their whole thing is that they're built on aggression, and maybe his thinking was like, well, they just need that to feed and survive and stuff. But like, nah, it's like combining a shark with a tiger, and then like, this will be the least violent animal that's ever existed. It's like, all it's known for is killing. What the hell are you doing?
Well, I think his logic, if you can call it that, is that animals are more obedient, so he can teach them not to be like that easier than he can teach just a straight-up human being, which is a bit messed up, really. And at that point, are they even really people anymore? That's kind of the argument going on. And also, though, my initial viewing, I got a vibe of it felt anti-socialist to me, right? In that they're the workers. They rise up, they take power, and what do? They turn into the oppressor. And I was like, oh, although I love this, I don't like that message. But at the same time, am I right in thinking H.G. Wells was a socialist?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
I think he was.
Not sure. I admit I've never actually read the book. Maybe I will. I've just been scrolling through the Wikipedia article on it, and I just noticed that apparently in the book he is working on a half-finished Puma woman who escapes from the lab and ends up fighting Dr. Moreau, and they kill each other.
Oh.
So I guess there's the inspiration for Firuza Balk there. It's not completely out of nowhere.
Oh, that would have been even cooler, and it makes sense. The connection between. I mean, I do like his death scene. I'm sad that he's dead at that point. Cause...
I think I was sad that he was dead because he was just the most entertaining thing in the film. So.
He's great. He's basically a drag queen. He's Palpatine. He's Flavor Flav. He's in a Pope-mobile.
Because you already get into the like little things like, oh yeah, him, and he's got this little mini-me guy, and then they show up in these bright lime green matching muumuus, and it's like, this is hilarious.
One of my friends is a cosplayer, and he has promised me that once conventions resume, he will go to Anthrocon dressed as Dr. Moreau.
Yes!
Anthrocon is the big furry convention here.
Oh, God, yes,
so
yes.
I can't wait.
I will fund it. Get a Patreon.
All right, I'll let him know.
One of the other things, very famous little bit of like, oh, Marlon Brando screwing around on set was like, there's a scene where he's wearing an ice bucket.
Oh, God, I love that.
Oh, yes.
And it's got the bottom cut out, and Fairuza Balk is just pouring ice on his head. Apparently, that's just Marlon Brando just insisted that this was a thing that was going to happen. And that he was just like, I can't stand the heat here.
Well, he came up with this sort of headcanon for himself where he had injected himself with animal DNA and was a dolphin-human hybrid. And that was covering the blowhole.
Oh, my God.
Like, that's up there with like in the Disaster Artist, where like Greg Sestero's account of like how they made The Room with Tommy Wiseau, and he was talking about like Tommy Wiseau was shooting out ideas like, oh, maybe we do this, maybe we do that, and then like at one point he's talking about like a car flying away or something, and Greg's just like, what's happening here? And he's just like, I don't know, maybe Johnny is vampire, and just kind of walks his way. That maybe Johnny is vampire is up there with Marlon Brando, but like, yeah, he's the guy's half dolphin. That's the reveal at the end.
The thing is, him being half dolphin would be one of the least peculiar things in the movie.
Apparently, David Thewlis has said he really wishes he could write a book about his experiences filming this, but he would be ruined if he were to.
Oh.
So we need to support David Thewlis in becoming the most powerful man in the world so he can make this happen.
So basically, you have a celebrity president, and now we can have a celebrity prime minister.
There we go. He can't possibly be any worse.
He can't.
One of the most notable things in, again, available to stream on Amazon Prime, Lost Soul, the Doom Journey to Richard Stanley's The Island of Dr. Moreau documentary. Fantastic.
I'm watching that tomorrow.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Me too.
And it's like everyone, even Bob Shea from New Line Cinema is just there going like, yeah, I produced this friggin' train wreck and stuff. And everybody except the dead and Val Kilmer, they're all involved. Fairuza Balk shows up, friggin' everybody's there to talk about it. David Thewlis is not mentioned once in that documentary. And I don't know if he's just like, I don't want to ever talk about it. I don't want to. They show one clip of him because they just have footage from the movie, but they talk about Rob Morrow, quitting. And they don't really mention the fact that it was like the main character of the movie was replaced by David Thewlis. They never bring it up.
Oh, that's got to be some legal thing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it must be like, we can show you because we own this footage, but I don't know if he was. And the thing is, out of it, like of all the hell, apparently him and Fairuza Balk were an item for a while afterwards. So I guess they both got something out of it. But she's happy to show up to talk about the nightmare of this movie.
When did that documentary come out? Because I'm thinking, does it coincide with him being a big Harry Potter star?
Oh, I bet that's it.
So he doesn't want the association.
I think it would definitely been. I think it was like 2014 thereabouts. Yeah, well past the Professor Lupin.
Oh, hang on, he's an animal person in that.
Do you think anyone brought it up on set where they're like, you were in a movie with loads of like wolf men. Now you are like a wolf man. He's like, don't ever talk to me about the.
I have no memory of this.
What are you talking about?
But again, it's talking about like in training the animal people though, because he's doing it. Moreau is doing that via like Clockwork Orange-esque methods.
Yeah, I assume because that's how people train like wild animals, which you shouldn't do.
Or, I mean, think about the shot collars on dogs or, like, with the invisible fence, that sort of thing.
Yeah, those things are so messed up.
Immediately, problem in his thinking, though, of like, I can raise these animal-human hybrids to be better. Is like, well, if you're already... You could do that with a human, but if you're having to put shock collars inside them...
It's already failed. Yeah.
Like you should be like it should be, if you can't do it from when they're in infancy, like of course you're just warping a creature into your vision of what you want, and of course that's what ends up happening. They rebel and then like rip out the friggin' things and turn against them.
I love the way one of the ways they want to rebel the most is to eat meat. And it's like, yeah, because they're animals.
Because they're not allowed.
Yeah, I actually quite like that. It's like, well, that's like a drive within them that he is not.
That's a core
dealt with.
part of their.
Yeah, and I love that scene actually where I kept thinking that this was Ron Perlman, right? But it wasn't. He was someone else. Is the main? I don't want to call him a villain, but the antagonist.
Oh yeah, his name's like Assassimon.
Something like that. Like
something like that.
He was great, and I loved that scene where he's like, "Paid no more," and he does that whole speech that ends with, "Now I am the law."
Well, that's the thing. Is like again because all the actors they were cast when Richard Stanley was on board, and because when John Frankenheimer came in to take over, they'd already done all the body casts and stuff to make the makeup, so they couldn't recast anybody. So a lot of that stuff, everyone who's cast in it, bar maybe David Thewlis, is pretty good because it's just like, well, this is the way it was supposed to be. Ron Perlman's supposed to be there. Timur Morrison's supposed to be there. This guy, that guy playing Assassimon, was supposed to be there. One of the ones I can't find him anywhere. And I'm fascinated to find where did they fit him into this movie? William Hootkins, our own Lieutenant Eckhart from Batman '89. He's one of the guys in here. William Hootkins, of course, worked with Richard Stanley on Hardware, where he played a very, very sleazy, disgusting character in that movie. And so the whole movie, I'm just like, William Hootkins is a very heavy-set gentleman. So where is he in this film? Like, I don't know which one of the animal. I'm assuming, I can't help but assume he's one of the animal people.
He must be. We would have recognized him otherwise.
Oh, of course, yeah. So I don't know where they hit him. I don't know if it's like that was Richard Stanley days. He's in it for like 2 seconds, and then we cut out the rest of his part or whatever. But the thing is, when Brando shows up, in his first scene, and he's like, "Oh, release him, give him the gun," and all this other stuff.
It's an amazing scene.
But he's very blatantly ADR'd. They've added this weird echo to his voice and stuff. And of course, one of my main memories of Eckhart from '89 was the fact that William Hootkins was very blatantly ADR'd. So I was really hoping they just got William Hootkins in to just do Marlon Brando's voice for the ADR session.
All of the voices Hootkins. It's not Brando at all.
So Val Kilmer is just saying to like Moreau, is like, he's seeing animal people, and he's like, he's drinking Drano. You ain't got no future, Jack. It's like recycling all the old Eckhart dialogue into this.
Oh, yes, please. Yes.
He's still a character from like early season 1 of Batman. I still miss Eckhart because we got so much material out of that guy.
Oh, press F, everybody.
I do have a question for both of you that we didn't get to earlier regarding Montgomery, Val Kilmer's character. Mm-hmm. Is he gay-coded?
I think so. There's a scene.
I read him as very gay-coded, especially by 90s standards.
There's definitely a scene where I felt like he was about to seduce Thewlis. It was very sexual between the two of them. He was very like he didn't sort of flirt with a lot of people, but watch his interactions with David Thewlis again, and there's a connection there.
I mean, I kind of took him at the end to be like what the hoopla around when Solo came out, when they're saying like, oh, Lando Calrissian has a relationship with this robot and stuff. Mm-hmm. And therefore there's a lot of people giving out about it. And it's like, I always took that Lando was shagging everything around the galaxy. Like, yeah, totally. I kind of get the vibe of like Montgomery's probably, Val Kilmer he's been frisky with some of these, with everybody. Probably even Moreau. Like, because he's just, well, there's 2 of them there on this island.
In his blowhole.
Yeah. Oh, that would be him. He resurrects Marlon Brando. They're like, we brought you back from the dead. Get this for a pitch. Like, we're taking your blowhole idea. Having Val Kilmer stick his dick. Brando was like, that's fantastic. I'm glad you awoke me from the dead. So
This is like something you'd get in South Park.
Yeah. Thank you, Radiation Wizard, for your necromancy.
Oh, we've made this film even better. Come on.
Look at that. They knew the humor of the things in it. Like, I'm certain they knew how funny those lime green matching muumuus were on Brando. And
Well, Marlon Brando knew how funny it was, and everybody else was probably in such shock that they couldn't appreciate it because everyone else was trying to take this movie very seriously.
Yeah.
Brando was the only one who was aware it was a comedy.
Has anyone ever worn a muumuu and it not be funny?
well, that scene is great because you get Brando and Mini-Me sitting at the head of the table. They're doing their thing. Everybody, like Fairuza Balk, Val Kilmer, like they're sitting at this little dinner table. They're all sort of interacting. And David Thewlis just sits like, he looks like he's about to jump out the window. Like he seems like he cannot stand what's going on anymore. And you can't tell if that's a character movement or if that's just David Thewlis like, can't take this anymore.
Get me out of here! Oh, actually, going back to the actual structure that we're slowly getting through. When he dies and stuff, they have a funeral for him. And the first thing that came to my mind, I was like, Darth Vader. Because they set him on fire, he's bald.
Return of the Jedi has destroyed the funeral pyre for as many generations as we can foresee in the near future.
They should have... Well, they do have a scene where they say, like, oh, his spirit is watching over us. I want a Force ghost of Moreau to come back and speak to them. And lay down the law.
Oh, that would be great if they did, like... as Thewlis is taken off of the boat at the end, he looks back to Ron Perlman and like a ghost of Marlon Brando will appear.
With the Mini-Me ghost, of course.
Yeah.
They re-released the movie in like 2010, and they did digitally put in like Marlon Brando from like Streetcar Named Desire. Because they're like, oh, we've updated it to be.
It's just somehow also Hayden Christensen.
Yes! Oh my God, please, please, please.
Hayden Christensen, I get to play Marlon Brando. Putting that in the CV. They got nothing else coming up, so come on.
Oh, God.
Actually, one of the things I wonder, John, in particular, have you picked up on this at all? And you are familiar with this person too, Alyson, because you were very kindly in the table read we did a couple of months back. And it's a scene where Moreau is sitting with Thewlis. And it's when Thewlis is first kind of getting to grips with everything that's happening. And it's when Brando does his little, like, I know this all seems very strange, but I can assure you, I genuinely am allergic to the sun. And then David Thewlis starts going like, what are you talking about? Look at him! Look at him! And it's just pointing to all the animal people.
I loved that so much.
Look at him! But, like, he really reminded me in that scene of a mutual friend of ours.
Are you going to say Gaz?
Yes, Gaz Flint, who was the Batman in our Batman table read. I totally got Gaz vibes from David Thewlis.
Well, it won't surprise you now, because me and Lol, when we watch a movie, the listeners won't know this, inevitably someone in the movie will turn to each other and go, oh, they're like Gaz. David Thewlis in this, we kept going, yeah, he's like Gaz. He looks like Gaz. He also had an energy of former guest Kit Flemons.
Oh, a little bit.
He's got the little tash.
I think it really reminded me, though, because Gaz, when he's not on Batman, he did. Now he's back living in England again. But when he lived in China for a couple of years, he did a YouTube series because he's pasty ginger Englishman, documenting his life in China as like a pasty, let's say pasty. That sounds bad. Pale skinned.
You can say pasty. We're all white here.
Yeah, we're all very white. So,
but I would even describe myself as pasty. So,
but one of the things most famous things he ever did in his online vlog, Ginger in China, was there was a guy out in the street walking like a chimpanzee on a lead. Like he just had like a leash around his neck. And Gaz is just like filming this going like, a monkey on a lead? He's got a monkey on a lead. What the hell is going on? And in that scene, I was just getting complete monkey on a lead energy from David Thewlis.
# monkey on a lead.
So I'll try to find what episode that was. I'll post it in the listeners page. But if you watch this scene and Gaz Flint going, a monkey on a lead, it's the same. It's the same thing. I actually thought that like David Thewlis, I don't know if I'm just more laid back or something. I thought he was freaking out a little too much as a kid.
What? Niall!
You wouldn't be?
I mean, you'd freak out a little bit, but he's
a
like,
little bit.
He's at 11 the whole goddamn time. Just like,
yeah, well, look at
I
him.
feel like that's warranted.
Well, okay.
No, completely. Alyson's hit the nail on the head. It's completely warranted. Like, what? How would that? I think he's taking it too well.
Yeah.
He hasn't tried to escape, really.
Is he? I don't remember. Is he drinking very heavily?
I don't know. I'd like to think of myself as like if I was I woke up on an island, but like ran by this Colonel Kurtz weirdo, and like Val Kilmer's coming on to me, I guess. And then
that's
you came
what
out
you
and
don't
like,
mind.
and then it's like, oh yeah, there's like a load of animal people. I would be like, this is bizarre, but okay. Like I guess I'll go with. I like to think that that's what that's the way I would act.
Well,
But David Thewlis is not doing that at all.
Speaking of Val Kilmer coming on to him and going back to the gay coding thing, I just remembered when Val does an impression of Brando and in a few other scenes and stuff, he ends up sitting in his chair like a bisexual.
Oh, yes, he does. Very much so.
He cannot sit in the chair properly.
That's a scene that I remember. One of the scenes in the movie that was like stamped into my head from when I saw it as a kid. For some reason, that first scene of him, when it's sort of like coming down the elevator and the way he's sitting in the chair, that really stuck in my mind.
That's a classic bit.
It's very weird.
Well, why do you think he does that? Because he could be trying to pretend to be him so he can be the new Moreau, but I don't get that vibe. It seems more like he's given up. He's like, screw it, whatever. I'm just going to get drunk and high and just go out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, he sort of has a breakdown.
Yeah.
I also really get the vibe that Val Kilmer really wanted to do a Marlon Brando impression at some point.
He just wanted to make fun of him.
Again, too, it's like pretty good impression. Like that's of all the Marlon Brando impressions I've heard. Hey, turns out Val Kilmer is pretty goddamn good at it. But
and there's a bit as well where Thewlis finds out they were experimenting on him, which kind of does paint Dr. Moreau as a villain, because he was trying to use him to cure his child. Well, not cure her, but you know. But when he found those papers and the folders and stuff that showed the experiments on him, I had to pause the movie, right? And I was completely wrong. I turned to Lol and said, I think this is going to be exactly like the twist in BioShock. I think he's going to be from the island all along.
I
thought it was going to be the big reveal. Spoilers for a very old game, BioShock.
It's like the producers of BioShock listening to this and like the sweat going down their heads like, he's on to us, goddammit.
Well, I thought it was cheating. I was like, oh my god, it's the BioShock thing. He's going to be from the island. This is the proof that he was created here. And then, no.
Admittedly, that would have been a better twist, quite frankly. Because the thing is, again, the second half of the movie is just like some stuff happens and you just don't care.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it just really falls apart.
Like that scene of Kilmer coming down doing the Marlon Brando impression. It's like, oh, this is fun. Like he's making fun of Brando. Don't know if it's an affectionate thing because apparently him and Brando, according to Val Kilmer, got on like a house on fire. According to the rest of the set, the two of them refused to come out of their trailers until the other one did because they're just egotistical assholes and stuff. Also got a slight vibe of like, again, much like William Hootkins, drastic throwback to Batman '89. But of course, you'll remember, John, when we had the Jack Nicholson doing his Jack Palance impression of like, ooh, I'm a number one, a guy. And we were speculating, like, is Jack Palance just sitting in the theater going like, fucking asshole's taking the piss out of me? What the hell's going on here? Was Brando sitting watching this movie going like, Val Kilmer asshole's making fun of me? But the thing is, I don't believe that Marlon Brando ever watched this movie.
I was just going to say, absolutely not.
Not a chance in hell.
I don't think anyone involved has watched this movie.
I think they should. I think everyone should.
They should be forced to face what they've done.
Oh, no, I adore it. And it also reminded me of an old video game I had called, I think I've brought it up on the show before, actually, Impossible Creatures, which was like a Command and Conquer sort of, RTS. But you were a mad scientist who had to design your units to be animal hybrids. So you could be like, okay, I've got this gorilla and it's got eagle wings. So it can just fly down and punch the face off this tiger that's got scorpion's tail.
Again, now the producers of that game listening to this episode, another beat of sweat coming into the goddamn it. This Island of Dr. Moreau hiatus episode is ruining us all.
Well, would that make the movie better for you too if there were more animal hybrids that were crazy and over the top?
And gorilla that flew around punching people in the face. Yeah,
That would make every movie better, I think.
So the new Batman villain is going to be a flying gorilla.
I think like next week is like all the set pics from Liverpool. Batman atop the library building, Gorilla Man flying around.
This is my way of secretly telling you that I have been cast in the new Batman movie as that character.
As a gorilla man?
Yeah, I created it. I'm going to get a credit.
I wouldn't really picture you as a gorilla. You're much too lithe.
You think that? That's
I feel
the
like you don't
illusion.
have the body type to be a gorilla.
It's
or
all an illusion.
you also don't appear to be that hirsute. I don't buy you as a gorilla. I think you're lying. Going out on a limb here.
Both the co-hosts of Batman had been cast in the new movie. Like John gets the part of the main villain, and then I just show up as like, "Your broth, Mr. Wayne." One scene, like, I asked for no broth. Get out of here, lest my cane find your backside.
We're at the end. They all rebel.
And it's just
Go crazy.
It's got this vibe of like, I guess they're taking over the island.
It doesn't mean anything at the end. It's like we said before. It's like I don't care by the end of the movie.
It's like Tamura Morrison shoots Val Kilmer, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's just
fine,
like, all right,
okay.
yeah.
It does move on from all the deaths very quickly, doesn't it? Including Dr. Moreau. It's just like, okay, right, next scene.
Okay, yeah. It just has that very distinct feeling that this was like, we're like 50 million in the hole. We gotta get this thing done. So just end it. End the movie now. Like,
I do like the end though, like a battle and stuff. That felt very Planet of the Apes. Not Planet of the Apes. Battle for the Planet of the Apes, where it's kind of cheap looking but great.
Oh, that was because they essentially remade that in the second. Actually, Matt Reeves, the first Matt Reeves
Yes.
Planet of the Apes movies, where they just did Battle for the Planet of the Apes again, but it was like
better.
way better. It's one of the few times I'll ever admit that like, a movie from like way back when was infinitely improved by the remake. Whereas like, you remember that fight where like a guy climbed up on a tree and Caesar kind of chased him and he just fell off the tree. That fight is just amazing. In the thing is Dawn for the Planet of the Apes, or whichever one it is.
Yeah, I love them, and I mix up the titles. I don't know.
Oh, I think the James Franco one was Rise of the Planet of the Apes, then Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, then the last one, War for the Planet of the Apes, I want to say.
That sounds right. The one that had Woody Harrelson in it.
Yeah. Doing a very Colonel Kurtz kind of role, actually.
Yeah,
The old straight razor on the bald head routine.
Well, do you both, though, think that then can you fit a story like this in a movie? Or does it need to be like a series or something? Because it's a lot to pack in. And then you've got to try and get an emotional ending going on. And...
It could have been done as a movie. I feel like maybe it could be well done as a limited series, but I really think it could be done well as a movie in the right hands. It would be longer than an hour and a half.
I think that's the thing. Is this is quite like it's quite quick for a film. Like it's it's standard film length, but like it feels like you could get this into 2 hours. You could make people care about the story and.
Oh, definitely. It feels like it should be longer than it is, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's again like little things like even flicking through the movie now, like if you didn't have these people involved, you might have had a much better time. Like you'll notice that Val Kilmer's got a blue material wrapped around his arm.
Oh yeah.
Apparently that was just a choice he made, and he never explained it to anybody.
Was it his choice to wear the David Beckham 90s sarong?
Most likely. I guess so, because it's like it's one of these things of just like Val Kilmer. It's like in Living in Oblivion, the movie. Apparently, that was making fun of Brad Pitt specifically, but it's people don't know. It's a movie, Living in Oblivion, starring Steve Buscemi, where he's an independent filmmaker trying desperately to get a movie made, and he casts. Well, apparently, it's supposed to be a big Hollywood star. It's James LaGrosse plays him in the movie. And he just shows up at one point with an eye patch. And he's like, my character wears an eye patch now and stuff. That's the kind of vibe. I think that movie was basing it on Brad Pitt when he made Johnny Suede. But I get the vibe that, like, that's this kind of Val Kilmer to show up like, I'm blue material wrapped around my arm.
Oh.
That's a character thing. What are you gonna do about
why
it?
not?
It's like,
Why not? I mean,
And they're
it
just
could be
like-
anything. Could be a wound. I don't know.
yeah, it's a wound. It's just like he just likes. It's like Michael Jackson's rhinestone glove. He just likes a blue material wrapped around his arm, I guess.
It's like that period where I just had a bandana sticking out my pocket for some reason. I was like, yeah, this is working.
Every day, everyone just would come up with me and be like, "What's with the bandana hanging out John's?" And I was like, "Don't ask. Don't ever ask." But yeah, of course, yeah. So we are near the end. Moreau's dead. The island, they all rebel. Assassimon, I believe, is kind of shamed into walking into a burning building, and that's him dead, I guess.
Yeah, what's the message there to you?
Like, why?
I think that I'm gonna posit there is no message.
Yeah.
I don't think they thought that through.
Well, they try and have a message in general, don't they? Because the very last sort of bits after, well, you get David Thewlis, he leaves. He goes home on a raft and whatnot. Nobody goes with him. He doesn't tell anybody where the island is. And then you get modern at the time, footage, trying to draw parallels, which I thought was very relevant to now. It was like they knew what was coming. It felt like the end of Black Klansman.
I was actually going to say, yeah, Black Klansman did that much. Because the end of Black Klansman's weird because it feels like at the end of like a 70s sitcom. Or not sitcom, but like Starsky and Hutch. And you're like, oh, it's a bizarre tone. And then Spike Lee shows you some actual news footage. And you're like, oh, I get it. You're highlighting that this was an idealized ending for a thing where there's still actually a very, very intrinsic problem going on in the actual world. But yeah, this is like very much. But the thing is, like now it's just like, aren't man beasts, aren't animals and humans very alike? And you're like, okay, yeah, I guess.
I like that message. I think it's an important message. But at the same time, you know, we have the gift of the mind. We should be able to treat animals maybe, you know me, I'm a vegetarian, as an equal, but we have a responsibility to be more sensible and protect others and things. Animals don't, they have to fight to survive. We don't have to do that. We're getting very serious now.
Oh no, I was going to say, is that the message of this podcast today?
Welcome to John's final thought.
That'll be our thing next season instead of like the riddle at the end. It's like, now we have John's final thought.
John's final thought is, if a lot of people love each other, the world would be a better place.
But yeah, so then Thewlis takes off, and that was the end of the movie. At the end of it, though, considering the horrendous reputation it has, I would say it's not a great movie, but it's not that bad.
It's a great movie, Niall. Shut up.
I know you seem to have the most beef at all of all of us, Alyson. Like, I don't think you. Is there anything in particular you want to vent about or anything? Or?
No, I just, I don't know. I was disappointed by it. I wanted more. I wanted to watch Richard Stanley's original vision for it.
I think that's the thing now. They do say, again, that documentary, they're like, we should have just gave the guy $8 million to go and make whatever the hell movie he wanted. We would have saved ourselves a lot of time and a lot of head scratching and pains in the ass. But
well, now I want to watch it. Yeah.
But it's, I will say though, again, I don't want to poop on Richard Stanley too much because I've seen his movies. Hardware, I know, it's got a massive fan base. I didn't care for it that much. And Color Out of Space, which he did last year with the H.P. Lovecraft adaptation with Nicolas Cage, which sounds on paper to be phenomenal, I found very lackluster.
Oh,
so
really?
I think,
I've been looking forward to watching it.
A lot of people
watch it, yeah.
A lot of people really, really love it. So I think I'm just in the minority there. But I know him though as an interviewee, as a person. Richard Stanley is a fascinating man. I would, if he just hosted like a YouTube channel where it's just him talking about his day. If he was doing the David Lynch weather reports kind of thing, I would tune into that every goddamn day because he's a fascinating man. But so I do think, you know, him doing like everything around his making of Island of Dr. Moreau, again in that documentary, Lost Soul, the Doom Journey to the Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, available on Amazon Prime. You see, like he's got, because apparently he's a very big fan of 2000 AD, which is, you know, where Judge Dredd and stuff came from back in the early 80s. And look, concept art by his friends just looks like pictures from 2000 AD. Like, it's phenomenal artwork and stuff he's got. And it's like a sort of a Timothy Leary looking Moreau holding like hybrid animal babies up until like a very Christ-like figure. Mm-hmm. And loads of really bizarre kind of things. Like, again, I think the only remnant of it is the animals like helping deliver that baby for that one scene. That's a Richard Stanley kind of thing, which is where like, I guess they kind of morphed that then like a year later into Alien Resurrection. Like that's a real Jean-Pierre Jeunet vibe of that movie as well. But I think he's one of those ones, like he's an idea man. He's got great ideas. Probably a good screenwriter, but I don't know about him as a director. So every time in that documentary where Robert Shea's going like, yeah, this guy, we weren't too sure about this guy, you know, and Rob Morrow is going like, yeah, I was trying to film, and Richard Stanley is going like, so just climb up to the side of that mountain there, and yeah, just go. And he's like, what am I doing? He's like, just go up and climb to the side of the mountain. He's like, there's no safety harnesses or anything. Just go up the side of the mountain and be like, just cling there and stuff for a little bit. And like, what am I doing? It's like, just go and do it. It's just like, he gets a vibe like I don't know if his original vision would have been any better than what we got, but it would have been more interesting. I'll say that, because the major failing of this movie to me is that it's great setup, bleh.
Yeah, I think that's what was disappointing to me, is that I sort of zoned out through like the last quarter of the movie because I didn't care. I wish it had been more batshit towards the end, I guess.
I kind of think you can do like that Fairuza Balk story. That is like The Fly. You could do like Fly. The David Cronenberg Fly is one of my all-time favorite movies, and it's because you're so emotionally invested in the relationship between Gina Davis and this guy turning into a fly. And it's like, you could totally do like David Thewlis and Fairuza Balk, both great actors. Her reverting back into a Panther Woman. You could make that the most emotionally resonant movie ever. But like, they just didn't care. I think they were just like, it's a thing we have, and we already shot some scenes of her saying she was going to do it. So I guess we got to hint, it's just, she's dead. And you don't even see her body. Like, it's just like, you see a silhouette of her hanging corpse, and that's it. That's all you need to see and stuff. And yeah, it feels very, very...
And you hear, like, the cat's yowl as she dies.
Oh, no, that was sad to me. See, to me, I get your criticisms. I get it. Don't worry. I understand. But I wasn't bored for 1 second. Lol was watching it with me. She was like, it was okay. Whereas I was like, oh, what are you talking about? It's amazing. It was brilliant.
Well, I mean, I guess we've run the gamut, though. Would be remiss, though, didn't, of course, mention, in case anyone's out there who's like, they didn't bring it up. There's, of course, an episode of the Batman animated series, which is very much based on the island of Dr. Moreau, called Tiger. And it's probably one of the worst episodes of that show, where Selena Kyle is literally turned into a cat woman by crazy scientists, and it's a whole bunch of and it's just like really just like the said it entirely through that Returns season, but like Batman animated show, phenomenal. The only character they did dirty was Catwoman. They never nailed Catwoman for me in that show. And the fact that was one of her episodes was like, it's the island of Dr. Moreau. It's like, you know, do you guys get this character? Do you know what the appeal of Catwoman is? But, of course, we did mention it in that season as well, because I remember specifically the guests we talked about with kept referring to this as the island of Dr. Monroe. And I was like, oh my God, I would love to see Dr. Marvin Monroe running this friggin' island. That'd be something else.
Why is that not a Treehouse of Horror episode?
Hey, by all means, right to who's producing The Simpsons these days? Like Matt Groening, Sam Simon.
A bunch of monkeys in a bag. Oh.
It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. But yeah, has anyone got any parting thoughts you want to vent on the island of Dr. Moreau?
I want you to draw an art for the for this episode going up, and it has to be the island of Dr. Zhivago.
Yes. Oh, we can make a t-shirt. Niall, we need to let's force Niall to do more art so we can put it on t-shirts.
That is
as if he doesn't do enough already.
That's so stupid. I would absolutely buy that shirt.
Oh my God, yes, please. So, Niall's got, all he does is edit 99% of the episodes. He can do some art.
I'm just trying. I'm going through my notes here now to be like, what else did we not mention? Roman Polanski was apparently originally scheduled to.
The less said about that, the better.
Yeah, so this is not bringing that up, I guess. I think I was calling the guy Rob Moreau this entire episode. Ed Moreau is the guy who was originally the David Lewis part. I had a joke about Fairuza bulking at this project. Yeah.
All right, I'm out. Bye, guys.
And apparently, one other thing was that John Frankenheimer, the guy who took over this, apparently was just also a nightmare because I think he apparently was known in Hollywood as a good workhorse. As like he took over the movie Train in the '60s from Burt Lancaster fired Arthur Penn off it and hired in John Frankenheimer. So I think their vibe was like, this guy can do anything. And this is, if you know John Frankenheimer's work, is like, Birdman of Alcatraz, Manchurian Candidate.
Oh yeah,
dramas like proper, sensible, very well made, sensible dramas. To throw him into the Island of Dr. Moreau is just friggin' crazy. But one of the things I found out about him is apparently he was good friends with Robert Kennedy, and he drove him to the hotel where he got assassinated. So
he assassinated him. You heard it here first, people.
Robert Kennedy was like, I don't want to go to this hotel, and he's just John Frankenheimer locking the doors, revving the engine to get him there faster and stuff.
Oh, the only other thing I had was yet again I was comparing it to something. I also thought it felt like an episode of Star Trek: The Original Series where they have an away mission. And they encounter a planet of strange animal people.
Yeah, 100% actually. Yeah, that totally. If this was a TOS Star Trek, and it's just like, yeah, I think they basically do things like this, where it's like, oh, the planet with the Vol, where it's like, oh, these sort of tribalistic people that follow this one god and all this.
And the god will be some disgraced ex-Federation officer who's taken over the planet for some reason. Yeah.
But yeah, actually, yeah, 100%. This would have been a very suitable Star Trek original series episode. And the thing is, like, there is a good movie to be made of the Island of Dr. Moreau. I know they made the Island of Lost Souls. Of course, we were remiss if we didn't mention Bela Lugosi was in the original version. Of course, Bela Lugosi, been a subject that Tim Burton was interested in. Yada yada yada. It's all connected, but I wonder now though if there's people sitting there with the Island of Dr. Moreau being their passion project, and they're just like, the reputation of this movie, whether it be earned or unearned, it's just like, you can't pitch to people now to do Moreau again. It's too 25, 24, whatever, however long it's been years later. It's still too fresh.
Still too soon.
It's still too soon. People are like, what, you mean the Val Kilmer, Marlon Brando thing? It's like, oh no. You gotta wait another 25 years before you can do the Island of Dr. Moreau again. But hopefully someday we might get there, and we'll get another movie out of this. Cast friggin' Val Kilmer as Marlon Brando as Moreau, and just have him do that impression the whole goddamn film.
Oh no!
Please, I would recommend everyone go watch this though. Whether or not you actually like it or just find it weird is another matter. But I think you should give it a try.
No, I agree with you on that.
It's certainly a fascinating thing to exist in this world.
I think I was almost sort of disappointed in that when we watched Catwoman, because that had a reputation, and every frame of every second of every scene was like, I was making notes because like, this is hilarious. I love this. It was so much of like, this is, oh my.
Catwoman was amazing. I stand by that.
Genuinely, Catwoman is entertaining as all hell. Mm-hmm. Whereas this thing is like, it's got a reputation as being like, oh, this appalling bomb. And it's like, it's not that bad.
It's more exciting behind the scenes, honestly. I feel like the movie itself is second fiddle to the story of the making of it.
Yeah. So again, I would recommend Lost Soul, The Doom Journey to Richard Stanley's The Island of Dr. Moreau, available on Amazon Prime.
Well, I've just looked it up. Yeah, it's there. I've added it to my watch list. And there is also another movie immediately after that called Dr. Moreau's House of Pain.
Ooh.
It looks amazing. It is included if you have a subscription to the Full Moon channel, whatever the hell that is.
Oh. I say that feels like some bottom of the barrel Shutter.
Oh, it really looks like it. In fact, the guy looks like an urukai on the cover. And then there's a pig man, and there's a woman who looks like she's in lingerie.
Yeah, that sounds, I don't know, Dr. Moreau. That was one of the things, though, is like as great as the makeup was, occasionally I was like, this is very Harry and the Hendersons as well. Yeah. The odd time you're like, they just threw in that character in the background. That's another thing, actually, as well. Because, of course, Richard Stanley fired off this movie, was ordered back to the plane. So they like New Line wanted him out of the country. They're like, get him away from this production. And he didn't get on the plane. And they found him, some of the extras found him 2 weeks later as a man ranting to people in town about how Val Kilmer had ruined his career and stuff. And then he sneaked back onto set disguised as one of the dog people.
Yeah, he got in with those extras who were just like local hippies, basically, camping in the woods, who were hired on as extras. And yeah, he worked with them to sneak onto set.
So there are scenes in this movie where Richard Stanley is a dog person in the background, even though he was fired and banned from ever coming back onto set. He's there. Apparently, didn't reveal who he was until like the last day of filming or whatever. But again, I think we mentioned in the main season, once he revealed himself, Val Kilmer came over and apparently like profusely apologized to him and was like, "I'm so sorry I treated you the way I did and stuff." Oh. So it's again, Val Kilmer is like, I don't think he's all bad. I think he's got an undiagnosed disorder, basically. I think if he went to get some therapy, they'd be able to go, this man has got like a narcissistic personality disorder, or he's got BPD, or he's got whatever. I think nowadays, again, he's apparently much more mellow. But I think back then he could have benefited from some therapy, but I think he just had too much money and too much clout. So he just did whatever the hell he wanted. But
I get it.
Yeah. The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Woo! Should we do plugs? We might as well. Alyson, have you got anything you want to plug? Have you got anything in the works or whatever? Anything?
Oh, no, I don't. But I'm sure you've talked about this. I would like to plug the Harley Quinn TV show on HBO. It's so good. Thank God. Oh, it's so good. It's like the best it might be the best superhero thing I've ever seen.
It's another one of those things I've deliberately not watched in case we cover it.
We'll have to cover it.
So good.
I try. This sounds weird. I try not to consume Batman-related materials because we might talk about them.
Oh no, it's Harley Quinn is top tier. Like it's one of the best TV shows in general to come out in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's so Venture Brothers in terms of like the background villains, especially. And I also like that we as a society have collectively memed Bane into a comedic character.
Hey, that goddamn movie did it within the first 5 seconds of Bane
exactly.
being on screen.
Oh, for sure.
I was laughing, thinking, this is a joke, right?
I mean, it got to the point where Doug Benson made it in the Lego Batman movie doing his Bane impression that he does on podcasts.
Because we got not a whole movie of Bane next year, but we got Bane and Batman and Robin coming up, so it's just like, all right, cracking the knuckles.
But do come and speak to us in all the usual places, people. We're on Facebook at the Bat-Minute Listeners Cave. Yeah, just look us up on Twitter and all that nonsense. But Patreon, that's where you really need to come and check us out. Patreon, because you're going to get even more stuff. We just talked about Falling Down. That was a great episode.
And that's where you can listen to Catwoman.
Yeah. No, hang on. Was Catwoman a Patreon?
I thought Catwoman was Patreon, wasn't it?
Cats was Patreon.
Oh, Cats was Patreon. That's
main
right.
feed. But of course, that's the thing, because this is we completely forgot to mention. The reason we're doing this month is because this is like the Halloween special, basically. We're in spooky season. This is kind of a creepy movie. But of course, this will be out Mischief Night, the night before Halloween, hopefully. And of course, then if you're on the Patreon, we're concluding our coverage of the long Halloween.
It's been a long Halloween for me. I mean, I've refused to read ahead, so I'm still reading that goddamn comic.
We actually have to set a time to record that last episode too, John.
Yes, quite soon. I'm writing an essay at the moment, but as soon as that's done.
Yeah, but yeah. So like, if you were to subscribe to the Patreon now, you'd basically have an entire other season of Batman right there for you, because we got 13 episodes lined up of just us talking for like an hour at a time about each issue of the long Halloween as we went. So
yeah, excellent. Well, yeah, come and check that out, and keep your eyes on said main feed for more wonderful, excellent hiatus material from the Bat-Minute crew.
Oh!
I was going to do a quote and I forgot every line. That's perfect.
Ba-da-da,